Hey, Mike,
Hey, Shikara Krishna.
how's it going?
Oh, not too bad. How about yourself today?
Well, I just spent the whole morning purchasing a car
Okay.
for my wife. Well, I just went down there with her because her car died, as everything does in the material world. It stopped about 3 blocks away from the house and they towed it to the shop and they said it was the engine. So, yeah, time to get a new car. So, let's see here. How was your weekend?
Wasn't bad. Wasn't bad. I didn't really do much. I was originally going to go out of town to go see a show, but I decided not to. I just didn't feel like being in a crowd, with,
I hear you.
yep. So,
Let's see if I can pull up. Okay, here it is.
did you have the meeting on Friday?
No, actually, that's when my wife's car broke down.
Okay.
It broke down like when she was coming home. And so I was busy with the tow truck and everything. And then I was trying to get a battery. And they didn't have any batteries because nobody has like everything is short now. They thought it was a battery, the first guys that came. And then I called them up again and said, so, well, sorry, we don't have any batteries. So I loaned my car to my wife, and another guy came the next day and said, this isn't a battery. They could just do it by hearing, and that it wasn't the battery problem. Okay, here's Maitreya now.
Yeah, I didn't know if I missed anything on Friday. So,
Nope, you didn't miss a thing.
okay.
Hey, Maitreya.
Oh,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Some my obeisances.
hi, please have mine. Hare Krishna.
Oh, you're at home
Yes,
instead of driving.
yeah, fancy that.
I see you've got a load of books behind you.
Yeah, I got a few.
Yeah.
That's the tip of the iceberg.
I like books. So now we're going to start on chapter 2, believe it or not. Let's see here. So you can pull up.
Hi, Krishna, back to Mike.
Hey, Krishna, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
No soccer practice today?
Tennis, no, tennis season
Tennis,
is now
tennis.
over. Tennis is over. We have the banquet tonight, though, but it doesn't start until 6, so I'm off. This is
Banquet
nice. My whole
for
screen is,
devotees, or-
no, it's it's a banquet for the team. Team
Oh,
and parents.
for the team. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, we're starting on contents of the Gita summarized. Mike was saying the other week that the introduction is kind of a summary of the whole Bhagavad-gītā. Now here's a summary of the Bhagavad-gītā 2.0. So Maitreya, you want to get us started here? We're reading the Sanskrit and everything. Are you
Okay.
good? You're good at the
Sounds good.
Sanskrit. You're an old.
I'll let you be the judge.
Okay, so
Sanjaya Vacha Tam Tata Kripaya Vishtam Ashrupurnakuleshanam Vishidantam Midam Bhakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha.
yeah, go ahead and read the synonyms and the translation after.
Okay. Sanjaya Uvacha, Sanjaya said, Tam unto Arjuna, Tata thus, Kripaya by compassion, Avishtam overwhelmed, Ashrupurna Akula full of tears, Ikshanam eyes, Vishidantam lamenting, Idam these, Bhakyam words, Uvacha said, Madhu Sudanaha, the killer of Madhu. Translation. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudan, Krishna, spoke the following words.
Yeah, we'll just take turns. Mike, you can read the purport.
Okay. Purport. Material compassion, lamentation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. Compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. The word Madhusudana is significant in this verse. Lord Krishna killed the demon Madhu, and now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. No one knows where compassion should be applied. Compassion for the dress of a drowning man is senseless. A man fallen in the ocean of nescience cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. One who does not know this and laments for the outward dress is called a Sudra, or one who laments unnecessarily. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and this conduct was not expected from him. Lord Krishna, however, can dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man, and for this purpose the Bhagavad-gītā was sung by him. This chapter instructs us in self-realization by an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul, as explained by the Supreme Authority, Lord Sri Krishna. This realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive results and is situated in the fixed conception of the real self.
Text 2. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Kutastva Kushmalam Idam Vishme Samapastitam Anaryajustam Ashvargyam Akirtit Karam Arjuna. Synonyms. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Kuta, where from? Kvat, tva, unto you, Kushmalam, dirtiness. Idam, this lamentation, Vishame, in this hour of crisis, Samupashtitam, arrived, Anarya, persons who do not know the value of life, Justam, practiced by Ashvargyam, which does not lead to higher planets, Ikirti, infamy, Karam, the cause of Arjuna, O Arjuna. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, how these impurities come upon you, they are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They do not lead to higher planets, but to infamy. Go ahead, Mike. Or I mean, no, Maitreya. Get unmute your mic there.
Purport. Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are identical. Therefore, Lord Krishna is referred to as Bhagavan throughout the Gita. Bhagavan,
Sorry.
Bhagavan is the ultimate in the absolute truth. The absolute truth is realized in three phases of understanding, namely Brahman, or the impersonal, all-pervasive spirit, Paramatma, or the localized aspect of the Supreme within the heart of all living entities, and Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2, text 11, this conception of the absolute truth is explained thus: Vadanti tad tattvavidas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. The absolute truth is realized in three phases of understanding by the knower of the absolute truth, and all of them are identical. Such phases of the absolute truth are expressed as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan.
We just usually take turns with each paragraph. So go ahead, Mike.
Okay. These three divine aspects can be explained by the example of the sun, which also has three different aspects, namely the sunshine, the sun's surface, and the sun planet itself. One who studies the sunshine only is the preliminary student. One who understands the sun's surface is further advanced, and one who can enter into the sun planet is the highest. Ordinary students who are satisfied by simply understanding the sunshine, its universal pervasiveness and the glaring effulgence of its impersonal nature, may be compared to those who can realize only the Brahman feature of the absolute truth. The student who has advanced still further can know the sun disk, which is compared to knowledge of the Paramatma feature of the absolute truth. And the student who can enter into the heart of the sun planet is compared to those who realize the personal features of the supreme absolute truth. Therefore, the Bhaktas, or the transcendentalists who have realized the Bhagavan feature of the absolute truth, are the topmost transcendentalists, although all students who are engaged in the study of the absolute truth are engaged in the same subject matter. The sunshine, the sun disk, and the inner affairs of the sun planet cannot be separated from one another. And yet, the students of the three different phases are not in the same category.
The Sanskrit word Bhagavan is explained by the great authority Parashara Muni, the father of Vyasadeva. The Supreme Personality who possesses all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation is called Bhagavan. There are many persons who are very rich, very powerful, very beautiful, very famous, very learned, and very much detached, but no one can claim that he possesses all riches, all strength, etc. entirely. Only Krishna can claim this because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No living entity, including Brahma, Lord Shiva, or Narayan, can possess opulences as fully as Krishna. Therefore, it's concluded in the Brahma Samhita by Lord Brahma himself that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to or above him. He is the Supreme Lord, or he is the primeval Lord, or Bhagavan, known as Govinda, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. Ishvara Paramakrishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarna Karnam. There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan, but Krishna is the supreme because none can excel him. He is the supreme person, and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes. I remember when I first bought some cassette tapes, Prabhupada's cassette tapes in the late 70s, before I went to the New Vrindavan, I was listening to tapes and I couldn't understand much of what Prabhupada said, but I just remember hearing that word over and over and Prabhupada pronouncing the word, so Bhagavan, So Mike, you want to take it down to the end? Or I mean, Maitreya. Maitreya, you still there?
The text is jumping around a bit. Okay, there we go. There are many personalities, host disabled person. Okay. There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan, but Krishna is the supreme because none can excel him. He is the supreme person and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primal Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes, Brahma Samhita 5.1. In the Bhagavatam also, there is a list of many incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Krishna is described as the original personality of Godhead, from whom many, many incarnations and personalities of Godhead expand. Ete changsap kala pungsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. All the lists of the incarnations of Godhead submitted herewith are either plenary expansions or parts of the plenary expansions of the Supreme Godhead, but Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Bhagavatam 1.3.28. Therefore, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, the source of both the Supersoul and the impersonal Brahman. In the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna's lamentation for his kinsman is certainly unbecoming, and therefore Krishna expressed his surprise with the word kuta, where from? Such impurities were never expected from a person belonging to the civilized class of men known as Aryans. The word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. Persons who are led by the material conception of life do not know that the aim of life is realization of the absolute truth, Vishnu or Bhagavan, and they are captivated by the external features of the material world, and therefore they do not know what liberation is. Persons who have no knowledge of liberation from material bondage are called non-Aryans. Although Arjuna was a Kshatriya, he was deviating from his prescribed duties by declining to fight. This act of cowardice is described as befitting the non-Aryans. Such deviation from duty does not help one in the progress of spiritual life, nor does it even give one the opportunity to become famous in this world. Lord Krishna did not approve of the so-called compassion of Arjuna for his kinsman.
Okay. So the goal of life is realization of Vishnu. I was just thinking this today, that's actually stated by Prahlad Maharaj, Sargagatim Hi Vishnum in the 7th canto. Nobody knows that, everybody's working for their sense gratification. And, it took me a few decades to figure out what devotional service was, even though I've been a devotee for so long. And just today I was thinking that I read that thing by Prabhupada was saying, that the goal of life is actually to, please Krishna. The perfect devotee, he says, is one whose only thought is to please Krishna. And when you have that attitude of pleasing Krishna and you do that, you're only thinking about what he wants. And then you're not really thinking about your own sense gratification anymore. So then you can begin to think about what devotional service is at that point. So that's the realization I got today. It took me 40 years
Right.
to come to that realization, but
Unfortunately, we have Prabhupada's purports to all these, because otherwise it would be easy to think that what Krishna was asking Arjuna is unthinkable, killing his kinsmen, etc. And
yeah,
Prabhupada says that for a Vaishnava, of course, he's naturally compassionate, but therefore Krishna is emphasizing the idea of duty, that it doesn't matter what we feel based on the senses. There's an overarching duty. And then, of course, Krishna reveals to Arjuna, no one's going home. They're already all dead by my plan. You're either going to take
Right.
part or you're not.
it's a done deal, Arjuna.
Right. Yeah.
I was thinking, we had a charity. I was managing a charity for a while before the pandemic hit, with prasadam distribution. We were helping out Adi in New York City. Adi Purusha,
Oh,
Adi
yeah.
Purusha?
Yeah, I read about that. Yeah, that's
And
wonderful.
so we were doing that for a while. And then, there was a bunch of pickers that were picking and giving a certain percentage of their income to that thing. And we're also feeding veterans here in Pittsburgh. So I was thinking about, I started using that actually when I was driving for Uber. I used to drive for Uber too before the pandemic hit. I haven't started up again. I'm just kind of like coasting because nobody wants to work, for some reason after the pandemic. Neither do I. I'm just a lazy bum. But I was thinking about using that again because we'd give we'd give the veterans baked goods. My wife is a good cook. And we'd also send like cookies overseas with Bhagavad-gītas in them, because then I put a little sticker on the Bhagavad-gītā that said, this book was spoken to a warrior on a battlefield that was doubtful about his duty. So I thought that was appropriate. And I thought that would be like a good way to say, everybody that ride with me in Uber gets a cookie. So everybody likes a cookie. Even if you're Taliban, you like cookies, So you give them a book and you give them a cookie, and then you say, just gotta go in like a needle and not like a plow as far as distributing books goes. You just offer them a book, maybe an introduction to the Bhagavad-gītā with a little sticker where you can buy a book, or and you say if you want to give a donation you can, but no pressure, like that. That way you don't get in trouble, But you're also distributing books and you're just talking to people all day long,
The duty line is very effective with people in the military. I remember once at the St. Louis airport, 5 Marines stopped. They all took a Bhagavad-gītā. They all gave $5. And that was my only line, was what you just said. Exactly. Almost verbatim.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, it's really an important thing. I mean, just like you were talking about duty, that's, and camaraderie, all these guys, they come here and they want to go back because not because they of any other reason, but besides the fact that they want to support their brothers in the field, and they do have a sense of duty. And, Arjuna was confused about his duty. And so everybody's confused in this material world, and it takes a spiritual teacher like Krishna or his representative to clear all this confusion up.
No, the second chapter is sublime because he argues with them and he eventually has to be convinced.
I know, I was talking, when I last session with Michael, I was just saying, Arjuna spent the whole last chapter just complaining and making up excuses, And so Krishna had just to tolerate that and listen to him. And then finally, when he decided, okay, I give up, you tell me what to do.
He does it again in the 6th chapter. He pushes back again, and Krishna has to convince him again.
Where did he push back?
In the 6th chapter.
Oh, really?
He says, this system of yoga you have summarized appears unendurable and unpractical to me.
Oh, yeah.
He pretty much rejects it.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody, like, even back then, Arjuna was such a qualified person, materially and spiritually. He was a friend of Krishna, for crying out loud. But he said, this yoga system, forget about it.
No, he was a man of action. I mean, I tell people, think of pro football players, 2 of them take up a whole booth in a restaurant. Arjuna was bigger than all those guys. He was a gigantic.
Yeah, I mean, those guys were like 2 feet tall back then, I heard.
Yeah, Yeah.
I heard that's how tall they were back in those days. And yeah, the most, I think the tallest people are nowadays, like you get like a monster, like Chara, the player for the Boston Bruins. He's like, what, 7'2" or something? And he's considered a giant, everybody, like at the end of Kali Yuga, I heard that everybody would be like 4 feet tall. They'll live for like 40 years, and then they'll eat their own children. So you don't want to hang around for that, not
much preaching going on there.
No, not much, no preaching at all. Exactly. The only preaching is that Kalki would ride on his horse and kill everybody. It's kind of like it's kind of a heroic thing to think of Kalki, just like saving the only few, righteous people that are living in caves. And he just rides out on his white horse and just like, takes care of all the demons. Like Ridana says in 12th canto, he says he beats the pollution out of them. You can tell that's not Prabhupada. It sounded like Ridana. Of course, Prabhupada didn't write that far in the Bhagavatam, but it is a heroic thing. Krishna consciousness is not just philosophy. It's also, it's got everything. It's got romance. It's got fighting, and that's why he wrote the Mahabharata, just for less intelligent people like me. So I'd be, excited and get into the story of it. Krishna consciousness is basically just storytelling.
If you've read the Mahabharata, you actually get more out of the Bhagavatam because, so many of the stories are continuations of things that have already happened. The families, the many of the storylines.
Yeah. I've got a chart on my wall, the Bhagavatam family tree. It starts from Krishna, you got Brahma. You ever seen that chart? It's like you can follow like all the different sages and all their family lines, and it's pretty awesome when you look at the time scale and stuff.
It's helpful because in the last purport, for instance, Prabhupada mentioned that Parashar Muni is the father of Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva is the father of some very interesting people like Pandu and Dhritarashtra. And so it's really interesting to see that.
Yeah, to think of a lot of these guys are still living too. Isn't Vyasadeva still living in Bhadarak Ashram?
I think Prabhupada mentions that in a purport. Yeah, and they come down at the end of Kali Yuga, and when the Vasudeva atmosphere spreads over the earth again, and then once again, people can become self-realized just by meditating.
Yeah, well, actually, after Kalki kills everybody, there's some dudes somewhere in India that are just hanging out until that happens 427,000 years from now. They're just like waiting for the Satyuga to begin. Then they'll, take up the work of progenitors, I guess. Anyway, it's just such an awesome time scale, You remember Varshana Maharaj, Maitreya?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like he would tell these stories I'd never heard him before. And he was saying, like when Krishna was out with his cowherd boyfriends and they took lunch by the river, and then Brahma was thinking, what's going on with this guy? How is he the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And so he took all the cowherd boys and cows, and then Krishna replicated all of them, and then Brahma came back after a moment of his own time. But then he was realizing he was very ashamed that he was like a firefly compared to the sun as far as mystic power is concerned. But he was very ashamed and he was very repentant and kind of regretful, because he was thinking, Varshana was saying, I could have taken birth as a cowherd boy. Instead I'm just this guy that's so, passionate, mode of passion and creation. I have actually wasted the first 150 trillion years of my life. 150 trillion with the T. And that it was having a midlife crisis, And so that's just that one thing, just the time scale is so grand that you can't even think of that, somebody living that long, but that's, some people do,
Yeah, trillions hard to conceive. 1,000 billions. That's
1,000 billion. If you take $1 billion, you can wrap it around the earth end to end 4 times.
Yeah.
And that's just a billion. What to speak of 1,000 billion, which is a trillion.
You can lasso the moon with that.
Yeah. Oh my God. But anyway, let's see. I guess I'm reading the Sanskrit here, and then Mike, you can read the purport. Klaivyama smagama parta naitatvaya papadyate kshodram hridayadar labhyam traktotista parantapa. Synonyms: Klaivyam, impotence; masma, do not; gama, take to; parta, O son of Prita, na, never; etat, this; tvayi, unto you; upapadyate, is befitting; chudram, petty; hridaya, of the heart; dorbalyam, weakness; trakta, give up, giving up; utista, get up; param tapa, O chastiser of the enemies. Translation: O son of Prita, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It doesn't become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart, and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. Go ahead, Mike.
Purport. Arjuna was addressed as the son of Pritha, who happened to be the sister of Krishna's father, Vasudeva. Therefore, Arjuna had a blood relationship with Krishna. If the son of a Kshatriya declines to fight, he is a Kshatriya only in name only. And if the son of a Brahmin acts impiously, he is a Brahmin in name only. Such Kshatriyas and Brahmins are unworthy sons of their fathers. Therefore, Krishna did not want Arjuna to become an unworthy son of a Kshatriya. Arjuna was the most intimate friend of Krishna, and Krishna was directly guiding him on the chariot. But in spite of all these credits, if Arjuna abandoned the battle, he would be committing an infamous act. Therefore, Krishna said that such an attitude in Arjuna did not fit his personality. Arjuna might argue that he would give up the battle on the grounds of his magnanimous attitude for the most respectable Bhishma and his relatives. But Krishna considered that sort of magnanimity mere weakness of the heart. Such false magnanimity was not approved by any authority. Therefore, such magnanimity, or so-called non-violence, should be given up by persons like Arjuna under the direct guidance of Krishna.
Yeah, what's his name? Gandhi. He said that the Gita was actually he used nonviolence. They used the Gita to justify his nonviolent movement, which is just bogus. Krishna was not a nonviolent person, in the sense of that term. You have to, it's not a virtue in and of itself, just being nonviolent. Of course, devotee never hurts even a fly, but when it's justified, then on behalf of Krishna, you can commit violence to keep law and order in society. That's part of the way things are in the material world. There's always going to be conflict and violence, as long as we're here. That's why we got to get out of here. Go ahead, Maitreya.
Okay. Arjuna uvacha katam bhishmam aham sankhe dronam cha madhusudana ishubi pratiyotsyami purjarvyat arisudana. Arjuna uvacha, Arjuna said, katam, how, bhishma, aham, I, sankhe, in the fight, dronam, drona, cha, also, madhusudana, O killer of Madhu, ishubhi, with arrows, pratiyotsyami, I shall counterattack, puja arho, those who are worshipable, arisudana, O killer of the enemies. Translation: Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship?
Go ahead, Mike.
Purport. Respectable superiors like Bhishma, the grandfather, and Dronacharya, the teacher, are always worshipable. Even if they attack, they should not be counterattacked. It is general etiquette that superiors are not to be offered even a verbal fight. Even if they are sometimes harsh in behavior, they should not be harshly treated. Then, how is it possible for Arjuna to counterattack them? Would Krishna ever attack his own grandfather, Ugrasena, or his teacher, Sandipani Muni? These were some of the arguments offered by Arjuna to Krishna.
Text 5. Guna nahatvahi mahanu bhavan shreya bhoktam bhaiksham apya loke Hatvarta kamams tu gurun haiva bunjia bogan rudhira pagdigdam. Synonyms: Gurun, the superiors; Ahatva, not killing; he, certainly; Maha Anubhavan, great soul; Shreya is better; Bhoktum, to enjoy life; Bhaksham, by begging; Api, even; Iha, in this life; Loke, in this world; Hatva, killing; Arta, gain; Kaman, desiring to; but Gurun, superiors; Iha, in this world; Eva, certainly; Bunjia, one has to enjoy; Bogan, enjoyable things; Rudhira, blood; Pradigdan, tainted with. Translation: it would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of these great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, there's my superiors. If they're killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. Go ahead, Maitreya.
Report. According to scriptural codes, a teacher who engages in an abominable action and has lost his sense of discrimination is fit to be abandoned. Bhishma and Drona were obliged to take the side of Duryodhana because of his financial assistance, although they should not have accepted such a position simply on financial considerations. Under the circumstances, they have lost the respectability of teachers. But Arjuna thinks that nevertheless they remain his superiors, and therefore to enjoy material profits after killing them would mean to enjoy spoils tainted with blood.
Yeah, that's one thing that is remarkable about the Vedic culture. Everybody's so respectful and everybody keeps their word. As far as Kshatriyas goes, that's never, hardly ever do you see people that are respectable nowadays in politics or administrative work, and never, and how many lies did all these politicians say, I remember one time in the Bhagavatam, Bhumi said, I can't even bear the weight of one liar. I can withstand wars and everything like that, but I can't even bear the weight of one liar. And now everybody's lying. It's like the last leg of Kali Yuga is being chopped out from under us. That's the only leg that's left in the four legs of religion. But truth is the only one that's left. And that one's going fast, It's like Kali Yuga is like taking over big time.
This verse is interesting because you can see how Arjuna is being bewildered. He's in Maya because he's talking about enjoying everything we enjoy.
Yeah.
We're not here to enjoy. That's not what this is about at all.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's amazing how, we always think that we're Krishna conscious. I remember I was reading somebody's post on Facebook, an old Sankirtan devotee like you and I, Maitreya, from New Vrindavan back in the day. And he was like enjoying, he had a picture of a pipe, was loaded with pot, he's enjoying his pipe, And I was just thinking about that. And I said, I smoked pot like once after I became a devotee. Some kids were subletting my apartment back 20 years ago. I found a pipe on the top of my TV set, and I just decided to indulge a little bit. I popped in a Rush tape, old concert from the 80s, and I thought that was the best concert I've ever seen, But then, you realize after a while, Krishna doesn't want us, Krishna is the real enjoyer. In the beginning of the foreword of Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna says, instead of trying to satisfy our own senses, or like Arjuna says, instead of being the enjoyer or of sharing the spoils of war with other people, which, if you buy something, then you have to share it with somebody. Mm-hmm. Instead of enjoying in that way, you try to satisfy Krishna's senses instead of your own senses.
And devotees that have a higher taste, that phase doesn't last very long usually, as you found out.
Yeah. And it's ultimately, it's frustrating because then you're always it's like a football field, hankering and lamentation. Once you get done with enjoying one thing, then you have to hankering for another thing, and you're just kicked back and forth on like a football on the football field, and you're never satisfied. But if you satisfy Krishna's senses, then you're really happy because and you're just focused on that. But, I mentioned that to that devotee that was smoking the weed, and I said, you're in your your golden years, and you're thinking that the satisfy your senses. He said that Krishna, he said, he said, that's not really renunciation. I mean, real renunciation is to stop trying to enjoy ourselves and try to help Krishna to enjoy. You know, that's the highest thing, is what the gopis did. They weren't concerned about their own enjoyment at all. Krishna's enjoyment is the topmost, their only consideration. And so therefore, you know, Arjuna's and Maya, and this guy, I think he said, he wrote back and he said, well, I'm renounced. You know, the whole point of this post is that I'm renounced and Krishna's given me all the externals that I need, you know. And I always think of Krishna and Prabhupada, you know, but I think he's just like, I mean, he didn't get what I was thinking, because what I was trying to say. And I said, well, if you really think you're renounced, then, you know, if you really think you're doing what Krishna and Prabhupada want you to do, and according to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, then more power to you. I don't know. Maybe he is doing what, maybe smoking pot is his dharma. I don't know. I don't want to judge anybody, but, you know, we followed Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Prabhupada said, you know, don't, you know, he didn't want us to smoke pot. I don't think.
Like Narada Muni says, once you have a higher taste, you can pretend that you didn't have it, and you can try to enjoy the lower things, but it doesn't last very long before you come crawling back and
Yeah, you know what it's
Krishna,
like?
please
It's like,
forgive me.
you know that the fairy tale, I don't know if it's a fairy tale, but it's kind of like a racist fairy tale. It's got Briar Rabbit and Uncle Remus.
Yeah.
You know, Krishna is like the tar baby in that story, because the more you interact with him, the more you get stuck to him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I know devotees that have gone back and tried to enjoy. Usually it's precipitated by some, you know, some extreme pain, the loss of something, or, you know, they've gotten a psychic shock or something. And then they've quickly realized that the really only medicine, the only thing that will actually ever satisfy is Krishna consciousness.
yeah. Remember Bhima and Aniruddha?
Yeah.
Okay, so they were smoking pot once, you know, they stopped for the day and they're smoking some pot, and then they decided to go out and play what is that, putt golf.
Oh,
And then after about 5 minutes, they just threw the putt-putts down in the ground. This is boring, you know. I mean, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? You try to enjoy something like that, you know. It might be happy for about 5 minutes, but then you just realize this is not you're not really happy, and Krishna doesn't make everything. You know, Krishna is like the soothing balm. It's otherwise our hearts are always burning in the poison of sense gratification, you know. That you have to have that realization, and the more we serve Krishna, the more, you know. I'm reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita with the synonyms and everything. It's such beautiful poetry. I mean, if you've ever read the Bengali, it's they're couplets and they all rhyme, you know, all the stuff that Krishnadas Kaviraj wrote. But in there, he says everything becomes very, very easy with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. And then if you don't have his mercy, then everything's really hard.
Yeah, the Param Drishva, the higher taste. Yeah, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that people will learn Bengali just to read that book.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It flows right off the tongue. And he was so old when he wrote that. I can't imagine. I mean, he was pretty much an invalid almost.
I know, it's shocking, isn't it? He describes his condition, and it's
you know what they had to write back on then? Do you know what they didn't have, like a typewriter or anything. They took a little stylus and they'd put it on a leaf and they'd press down. And when the leaf was green, and it would make an indent. And then when the leaf would turn brown, then the indentation would turn black. That's how they wrote stuff. And, you know, just to think of like all the advantages we had, you know, even Prabhupada, when he had all these volumes of Sanskrit literature that he put together, and he knew where everything was in these books. But, you know, to think of all the advantages we have, instant, you know, ability to look things up, you know, it's just amazing that we have no excuse. So we should be spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world within no time with all these tools that we have. I mean, Bhaktisiddhanta used to say that the radio and the newspaper are like mridanga, big mridanga, brihat mridanga. But we have like social media and YouTube, you know, it's like the big Burdanga, you know, it's
Well,
instant.
you're using technology and
Yeah, we're using technology now, but you know, it seems like, I don't know, I guess purity is the force. It's not a magic bullet, you know. The only thing, purity is a force, and that's the only thing you can really spread everything around the world. If it's selfless service to Krishna, and Krishna will broadcast it, you know.
Right.
Anyway, I think we're out of time. Unfortunately, this is really nice to have you aboard, Maitreya, because you
Thank
know
you.
it's good to have more than two people. I remember I was reading Emerson back in the day when I was in high school, and he said like conversation between two people is like actually there's a third person there too, and that's Krishna, and that's also nice. But to have like three people, then you know that's even better because it's kind of like an interaction. And you know, Prabhupada said, you know, if you're speaking alone in a room, that's, you know, it's very nice, but it's better, it's more enjoyable when there's more people there. That's what he used to say. You know,
Yeah, I used to like having parties with three. Remember traveling Sankirtan parties with three? That was a good number.
yeah, I remember with Rishikesh, we used to have 5 in a van. I don't know how we did that. It was
Wow.
the SDT, Srila Bhaktipad's Traveling Sankirtan Training Party. We'd have like 5 guys in a van, you know.
Wow.
That was too much.
A 3 is good because then if 2 disagree, there's a third person that's like the tiebreaker.